My name is Sarah Chin, and at 28 years old, I never expected my company's quarterly board meeting would become the sweetest revenge I'd ever taste. Standing in the gleaming conference room of Chin and Associates Marketing, watching my parents shift uncomfortably in their chairs as I presented our latest million-dollar acquisition should have been simply joyful. But years of being told I'd never amount to anything significant had built up to this moment. I still hear their cold words echoing in my mind. Sarah, you're just not leadership material. Some people are born to follow, and that's okay. The memory of that night when I graduated summa cum laude, and they spent the entire dinner praising my mediocre cousin's C+ average still burns. Before I reveal what made their faces turn ghostly pale when they realized who was actually running the meeting, let me ask you this. If you've ever had to fight twice as hard just to get half the recognition, drop a comment below because this story is for everyone who refused to accept other people's limitations. I grew up in what appeared to be a perfectly normal upper-middle-class family in Westchester County, New York. Our colonial-style house, with its manicured lawn and circular driveway, projected success, complete with family portraits that captured our practiced smiles while concealing the complicated dynamics beneath. My parents, David and Margaret Chin, had built their reputations carefully, Dad as a senior partner at a prestigious law firm, Mom as the head of pediatrics at the local hospital. We weren't just comfortable, we were the family other families aspired to become. My younger brother Kevin was 18 months behind me, but somehow perpetually ahead in our parents' estimation. With his natural athletic ability, effortless charisma, and that confident swagger that seemed to unlock every door, he embodied everything they celebrated. Kevin could bring home a B- and receive congratulations for trying his best, while my straight A's earned a casual, "We expected nothing less from you, Sarah." The difference in treatment wasn't subtle. Kevin's soccer games were family events. Dad would leave important client meetings, Mom would reschedule surgeries, and they'd cheer from the sidelines like he was playing in the World Cup. My academic decathlon competitions, debate tournaments, and honor society inductions were nice achievements that merited a pat on the head and maybe dinner at Applebee's if they weren't too tired. When Kevin expressed interest in business school, Dad immediately began networking, setting up informational interviews and discussing how he could leverage family connections. When I mentioned wanting to start my own marketing company, Mom literally laughed and said, "Honey, entrepreneurship requires a certain personality type. Maybe you should focus on finding a stable job at an established firm." The breaking point came during my senior year of high school. I had been accepted to every college I'd applied to, including Harvard, Yale, and Stanford, with partial scholarships to several. Kevin had been accepted to 3 state schools with no financial aid. At our family celebration dinner, yes, celebrating his acceptance to state schools, while my Ivy League acceptances were treated like expected outcomes, Dad raised his glass and announced, "We're so proud of Kevin for finding his path. Sarah, we know you'll do fine wherever you end up." That night, lying in bed staring at my acceptance letters spread across my desk, something crystallized inside me. I realized that no matter what I achieved, I would always be seen as the reliable, predictable daughter who did what was expected, while Kevin would forever be the golden child whose mediocrity was celebrated as excellence. The moment that truly shattered my relationship with my parents happened during Christmas break of my freshman year at Harvard. I had just completed my first semester with a 4.0 GPA while working part-time at a local marketing agency, and I was excited to share my success and my growing passion for brand strategy. Kevin had just finished his first semester at State with a 2.7 GPA and had been suspended from the basketball team for missing too many practices. Instead of concern, my parents were full of explanations. It's a big adjustment. He's still finding himself. College athletics are so demanding. During dinner on Christmas Eve, I tried to engage them in conversation about a marketing campaign I'd helped develop that had increased the client's sales by 35%. Mom nodded politely while scrolling through her phone, and Dad interrupted me mid-sentence to ask Kevin about his plans for spring break. That's when I snapped. Could you please just listen to me for 5 minutes? I'm trying to share something important with you. The silence that followed was deafening. Then Dad put down his fork, looked at me with that condescending expression I knew so well, and delivered the words that would fuel my determination for the next decade. Sarah, you need to understand something about yourself. You're a follower, not a leader. You're book smart, sure, but business requires vision, charisma, the ability to inspire people. Kevin has that natural magnetism. People gravitate toward him. You're more of a behind-the-scenes person, and there's nothing wrong with that. Some people are born to follow, and that's perfectly fine. Mom nodded in agreement, adding, "Honey, you're so analytical and detail-oriented. Those are wonderful skills for supporting someone else's vision. But starting your own company? That requires a completely different skill set that, frankly, you just don't have." Kevin, to his credit, looked uncomfortable, but he didn't defend me. He just sat there, allowing our parents to diminish everything I was and everything I dreamed of becoming. That night, I made a promise to myself. I would build something so undeniably successful that they would have no choice but to recognize my capabilities. I would become everything they claimed I could never be, and they would witness it firsthand. The next 7 years were a masterclass in determination fueled by spite. I threw myself into my studies with renewed intensity, not just to learn but to prove. I took on every leadership opportunity available: student government, debate team captain, founding president of the Harvard Marketing Association. Each achievement was a small rebellion against their limiting beliefs. During my junior year, I launched my first real business venture, a social media marketing service for local Boston restaurants. Working 20-hour days between classes, I grew the client base from 3 small cafes to 15 established restaurants within 6 months. The revenue was modest, but the experience was invaluable, and more importantly, it proved to me that I could build something from nothing. My parents' reaction to the success was predictably dismissive. "That's nice," dear Mom said during one of our weekly phone calls. "But don't let it distract you from your real studies. You'll need excellent grades to get a good job after graduation." After Harvard, I deliberately chose a different path than they expected. Instead of pursuing the law school applications Dad had already prepared or accepting the hospital administration position Mom had arranged through her connections, I took a junior-level position at a small marketing firm in Chicago. My starting salary was $38,000, less than half what Kevin was making in his entry-level sales position that Dad had secured for him through a client. "We're disappointed," Dad told me during my graduation lunch. "You're wasting your Harvard education on this marketing nonsense. Kevin's already talking about getting his MBA in a few years. Maybe you should consider something more substantial." At that small Chicago firm, I discovered my true calling. Marketing wasn't just about selling products. It was about understanding human psychology, crafting compelling narratives, and building genuine connections between brands and consumers. I was naturally gifted at seeing patterns others missed, at identifying untapped market opportunities, and at developing strategies that consistently delivered results. Within 8 months, I had increased my clients' average revenue by 42% and had been promoted twice. By the end of my second year, I was managing accounts worth over $2 million and leading a team of 5 other marketers, including several who had been there much longer than me. The firm's owner, Patricia Williams, became my first real mentor. She saw something in me that my own parents had missed. "Sarah," she told me during my second-year review, "you have the rare combination of analytical brilliance and creative vision. Most people have one or the other. You're going to be running your own agency within 5 years, and I want to be your first investor when you do." During this period, my parents continued to celebrate Kevin's modest achievements while treating my success as somehow less meaningful. When I told them about my promotion to senior account director, Dad's response was, "That's nice, honey. Kevin just got promoted to regional sales manager. He's really showing his leadership potential." Kevin's regional sales manager position involved supervising 2 other salespeople and came with a $3,000 raise. My promotion involved leading a 12-person team and came with a $25,000 salary increase plus profit-sharing bonuses. The math didn't matter to them. The narrative was set. Patricia Williams became more than just a boss. She became the mother figure I had always needed. Unlike my parents, she saw my potential not as a limitation to be managed, but as a force to be unleashed. During our weekly mentorship meetings, she shared the hard-won wisdom of someone who had built a successful business from scratch. "The people who doubt you often do so because your success threatens their worldview," she told me during one of our conversations. "Your parents see Kevin's struggles as normal and your excellence as somehow unnatural. They're more comfortable with his failures than with your successes because his failures confirm their understanding of how the world works." Patricia taught me that true leadership wasn't about the charisma and magnetism my parents valued in Kevin. It was about consistency, vision, and the ability to make everyone around you better. She showed me how to read financial statements, how to build strategic partnerships, and how to negotiate deals that created value for everyone involved. More importantly, she believed in my dream of starting my own agency. "When you're ready," she said, "I'll be your first client and your first investor. But don't rush it. Build your skills, save your money, and most importantly, build your network. Success in this business is about relationships, and you're naturally gifted at building authentic connections with people." Under her guidance, I began preparing for eventual independence. I saved 60% of my income, living in a tiny studio apartment and eating more ramen than any Harvard graduate should. I attended every industry conference, joined professional associations, and built relationships with vendors, clients, and competitors. Most importantly, I started documenting every successful strategy, every lesson learned, every contact made. By my 4th year at the firm, I was essentially running the day-to-day operations while Patricia focused on business development and strategic planning. Our revenue had grown from $3.2 million to $8.7 million during my tenure, and much of that growth was directly attributable to campaigns I had developed and implemented. The decision to start Chin and Associates Marketing wasn't impulsive. It was calculated and strategic. After 5 years of preparation, I had saved $180,000, built relationships with potential clients who had expressed interest in working with me independently, and developed a comprehensive business plan that Patricia had helped me refine. My parents' reaction to my entrepreneurial announcement was predictably negative. "Sarah, this is incredibly risky," Mom said during our monthly family dinner. "You have a stable, well-paying job. Why would you throw that away to start something that will probably fail?" Dad was even more direct. 90% of new businesses fail within the first 5 years. "You're not cut out for the stress and uncertainty of entrepreneurship." Kevin's considering starting his own real estate investment company, and that makes sense because he has the personality for risk-taking. You're too cautious, too analytical. Stick with what you know. Their lack of support stung, but it also fueled my determination. I had spent years proving myself to them without success. Now I would prove myself to the market, and their opinion would become irrelevant. The early days of Chin and Associates were challenging but exhilarating. Working from my studio apartment, I launched with 3 clients Patricia had helped me secure, including her own firm as my anchor account. My first-year revenue goal was modest, $250,000, but I was determined to exceed it. The breakthrough came 6 months in when I landed a contract with a struggling restaurant chain that was considering bankruptcy. Their previous marketing efforts had been scattered and ineffective, and they were losing customers faster than they could acquire new ones. I developed an integrated campaign that repositioned them as a community-focused, family-friendly brand while implementing a loyalty program that encouraged repeat visits. Within 4 months, their same-store sales had increased by 28%, and they had postponed their bankruptcy proceedings. Within 8 months, they were profitable again and expanding to 2 new locations. The case study became my calling card, and referrals began flowing in. By the end of my second year, Chin and Associates had grown to 8 full-time employees and annual revenue of $1.2 million. We had moved from my apartment to a proper office space, and I was consistently turning down potential clients because we were at capacity. The growth wasn't just in numbers, it was in reputation. Our campaigns were winning industry awards, our strategies were being studied by competitors, and I was being invited to speak at conferences where I had once been an eager attendee. My parents' response to this success was a masterpiece of cognitive dissonance. When I told them about winning the Chicago Marketing Association's Campaign of the Year award, Dad said, "That's nice, dear. Kevin just closed his biggest real estate deal yet, $300,000. He's really finding his stride." The $300,000 deal Kevin had closed earned him a $9,000 commission. The campaign that won the award had generated $2.3 million in revenue for our client and $230,000 in fees for my agency. The comparison was absurd, but they made it anyway. During year 3, I made the decision to expand nationally. The risk was enormous, hiring talent in new markets, establishing offices in Los Angeles and New York, and managing operations across multiple time zones. But the opportunity was too significant to ignore, and I had learned to trust my instincts. The expansion was more successful than I had dared to hope. Within 18 months, we had offices in 5 cities, 35 employees, and annual revenue approaching $4 million. More importantly, we were attracting the kind of high-profile clients that established agencies had dominated for decades. The moment I had been unconsciously working toward for nearly a decade arrived in the most unexpected way. Kevin, who had struggled with his real estate career and was facing significant financial difficulties, approached me about working for Chin and Associates. The irony was delicious, but I hired him anyway, not as a favor, but because he was genuinely good at building client relationships, even if he lacked strategic thinking skills. My parents' reaction to Kevin working for me was a fascinating study in mental gymnastics. Rather than acknowledging that their follower daughter was now employing their natural leader son, they framed it as Sarah finally recognizing Kevin's value and Kevin being generous enough to help his sister's little business. The true vindication came during our 5th year when Chin and Associates was acquired by Omnicom, one of the world's largest advertising conglomerates, for $47 million. As part of the deal, I would continue as CEO of the subsidiary while also joining Omnicon's board of directors. The acquisition made national news, not just because of the size of the deal, but because of my age and the agency's rapid growth trajectory. Forbes featured me on their 30 Under 30 list, and Harvard Business School invited me to guest lecture on entrepreneurship and rapid scaling strategies. When the news broke, my parents called me for the first time in months. "Sarah, we saw the article in the newspaper," Mom said, her voice carrying a tone I had never heard before, something between pride and bewilderment. "We had no idea your company had become so significant." Dad got on the line and, for the first time in my memory, seemed genuinely impressed. $47 million? Sarah, that's incredible. We're very proud of you. Their pride felt hollow after years of dismissal, but it also felt like vindication. They were finally seeing me as I had always been, not as they had insisted I was. The ultimate moment of triumph came 6 months after the acquisition, when I was invited to present Shunned and Associates' performance to Omnicon's full board of directors. This wasn't just any board meeting. It was the quarterly review where subsidiary CEOs presented their results to some of the most powerful people in global advertising. What I didn't know until I walked into that mahogany-paneled conference room was that my parents would be there. Dad's law firm had recently been retained by Omnicon for some complex international contracts, and as the lead partner on the account, he had been invited to observe the meeting to better understand the company's structure and operations. The shock on both their faces when I walked to the front of the room was priceless. I watched Dad lean over to whisper something to Mom, saw her eyes widen in recognition, and felt a surge of satisfaction that I had waited years to experience. "Good morning, everyone," I began, my voice steady and confident. "I'm Sarah Chen, CEO of Shunned and Associates, and I'm excited to share our Q3 results with you." For the next 30 minutes, I presented the kind of numbers that make board members sit up and take notice. Revenue growth of 340% year-over-year. Client retention rate of 94%. Profit margins that exceeded industry standards by 23%. Our Los Angeles office had just landed a $15 million campaign with a major entertainment studio, and our New York team had been invited to pitch for a global pharmaceutical account worth potentially $50 million. But the numbers were just part of the story. I talked about our company culture, our innovative approaches to data-driven marketing, and our expansion plans for the coming year. I fielded questions from board members with the kind of expertise and confidence that comes from truly understanding every aspect of your business. When the presentation ended, the applause was genuine and sustained. The board chairman, a legend in the advertising industry, stood up and said, "Sarah, what you've built in 5 years typically takes decades to achieve. Your strategic vision and execution have been exemplary, and we're fortunate to have you leading this subsidiary." Throughout the entire presentation, I could feel my parents' eyes on me, could sense their growing realization that the daughter they had dismissed as a follower was commanding the attention and respect of some of the most successful business leaders in the world. After the meeting, they approached me in the hallway, both looking somewhat shell-shocked. "Sarah," Dad said, his voice uncharacteristically quiet, "we had no idea. I mean, we knew your company was successful, but seeing you present to that board, seeing how they responded to you, we clearly underestimated what you had accomplished." Mom nodded, tears actually forming in her eyes. "Honey, I owe you an apology. We were wrong about you, about your capabilities, about everything. What you've built is extraordinary, and you did it despite our lack of support, not because of it." For a moment, I felt the old hurt rising up, The years of dismissal and comparison to Kevin threatening to overwhelm the triumph of the moment. But then I realized something profound. Their validation no longer mattered to me the way it once had. I had built my success not for them but for myself, and their recognition, while gratifying, was no longer necessary for my sense of self-worth. That evening, my parents invited me to dinner, not as some family obligation, but as a genuine gesture of respect and reconciliation. We went to the same restaurant where they had dismissed my Harvard achievements nearly a decade earlier, and the symbolism wasn't lost on any of us. "We need to talk about Kevin," Dad said after we had ordered. "He's been working for you for 2 years now, and we've been watching how you've managed that relationship. You've been incredibly generous with him, giving him opportunities to succeed without making him feel diminished by working for his younger sister. That shows a level of emotional intelligence and leadership that we completely failed to recognize." Mom leaned forward, her expression more serious than I had ever seen it. "Sarah, we owe you more than an apology. We owe you an explanation, though we're not sure we fully understand it ourselves. I think we were so invested in the idea that Kevin needed our support and advocacy that we failed to see you didn't need it. You were going to succeed regardless. But that doesn't excuse how we treated you or how we dismissed your dreams. The truth is," Dad continued, "Kevin has struggled professionally not because he lacks ability, but because he was given opportunities he hadn't earned and praise he hadn't deserved. We did him no favors by constantly building him up while tearing you down by comparison. We created artificial confidence in him and unnecessary insecurity in you, and it damaged both of you." The conversation continued for nearly 3 hours, covering years of hurt feelings, missed opportunities for connection, and their growing realization of how profoundly they had misjudged both their children. They asked about my business, my plans for the future, and for the first time in my memory, they listened to my answers with genuine interest and respect. "What you've accomplished," Mom said as we were preparing to leave, "isn't just impressive from a business standpoint. You've created something meaningful. You're employing dozens of people. You're helping other businesses succeed. You've built exactly the kind of legacy we always hoped our children would build, and you did it while being the kind of person we always hoped our children would become." Today, 3 years after that transformative board meeting, Chin and Associates has become one of Omnicon's most profitable subsidiaries. We've expanded to 12 cities, employ over 200 people, and our annual revenue exceeds $25 million. But more importantly, we've maintained the culture of innovation and collaboration that made us successful in the first place. Kevin still works for the company, and he's genuinely talented at client relationships and business development. The difference now is that he reports to me as an equal team member, not as the family favorite who deserves special treatment. He's earned his success through performance, not through connections, and he's become a better professional and a better person as a result. My parents and I have rebuilt our relationship on a foundation of mutual respect rather than their expectations and my rebellion against them. They've become genuine supporters of my work, and Dad has even provided legal counsel for some of our major contracts. More importantly, they've learned to celebrate both their children's successes without comparison or favoritism. The little girl who was told she was born to follow now leads a company that shapes marketing strategies for Fortune 500 companies. The teenager who was dismissed as lacking natural magnetism regularly speaks at industry conferences and has been featured in major business publications. The college student who was told she was too analytical to be an entrepreneur has built a business that combines data-driven strategy with creative innovation. Looking back on this journey, I've learned several crucial lessons that I share with young professionals who feel underestimated or dismissed. First, other people's limitations of you are not facts about you. They're facts about their inability to see your potential. My parents' assessment of my capabilities said nothing about who I actually was and everything about their preconceived notions of what leadership looked like. Second, the best revenge truly is success, but not for the reasons you might think. It's not about proving others wrong, it's about proving yourself right. When you succeed despite others' doubts, you develop an unshakable confidence in your own judgment and abilities. Third, sometimes the people who doubt you do so out of love, not malice. My parents weren't trying to hurt me. They genuinely believed they were protecting me from disappointment by encouraging me to pursue realistic goals. Their intentions were good, but their understanding was limited. Fourth, mentorship matters more than family support. Patricia Williams believed in me when my own parents didn't, and her support was more valuable than any inherited advantages. Seek out people who see your potential and invest in your growth. Finally, success is not just about achieving your goals, it's about who you become in the process. The skills, resilience, and self-knowledge I developed while building Shunned and Associates are more valuable than any financial reward or external recognition. The story doesn't end with my parents' recognition or my company's success. True vindication comes from using your success to lift others up, and that's become the most meaningful part of my journey. Shunned and Associates now offers a formal mentorship program for young professionals from underestimated backgrounds. We partner with universities to provide internships for first-generation college students, and we've created a scholarship fund for aspiring entrepreneurs who lack family financial support. I speak regularly at high schools and colleges, sharing my story not to inspire revenge against doubters, but to encourage young people to pursue their dreams despite others' limitations. The most rewarding moments come when students approach me after these talks to share their own stories of being underestimated and their determination to prove their worth. Kevin has become one of my strongest advocates in this work. He understands now how our parents' differential treatment affected both of us, and he's committed to breaking that cycle with his own children. He often jokes that having his little sister as his boss was the best thing that ever happened to his career, but the truth is that learning to succeed on his own merits was the best thing that happened to his character. My parents have also become advocates for recognizing potential in unexpected places. Dad now mentors young lawyers who don't fit the traditional mold of his firm's partners, and Mom has started a program at her hospital to identify and develop leadership potential among nurses and support staff who might otherwise be overlooked. The ripple effects of proving people wrong extend far beyond personal satisfaction. When you succeed despite others' doubts, you create possibilities for everyone who comes after you. You demonstrate that conventional wisdom isn't always wise, that potential comes in many forms, and that success is available to anyone willing to work for it. As I write this, sitting in my corner office overlooking Lake Michigan, I often think about that Christmas Eve dinner when my parents told me I was born to follow. The young woman who felt so devastated by those words couldn't have imagined the life I'm living now, not just because of the professional success, but because of the personal growth that success made possible. The real victory wasn't the day my parents finally recognized my achievements. It was the day I stopped needing their recognition to feel valuable. The real vindication wasn't becoming their boss. It was becoming the leader I always knew I could be. If you're reading this and you've ever been told you're not leadership material, that you lack the right personality for success, or that you should lower your expectations, I want you to know something. The people who doubt you are not fortune tellers. They're just people with limited vision, trying to impose their limitations on your unlimited potential. Your job is not to prove them wrong. Your job is to prove yourself right. Build the life you want, create the value you envision, and become the person you know you can be. Their recognition may come eventually, but by then, you won't need it anymore. The look on their faces when they finally see what you've always known about yourself? That's just the cherry on top of a life well lived and dreams courageously pursued. And if you've made it this far in my story, you're probably someone who understands the power of persistence and the sweetness of earned success. Drop a comment below and share your own story of proving doubters wrong. I read every single one, and your journey might inspire someone else who needs to hear that their dreams are valid and their potential is real. Because at the end of the day, the best revenge isn't just living well. It's lifting others up as you climb, ensuring that the next generation of dreamers has the support and belief they need to turn their potential into reality. That's the kind of leader I was always meant to be, especially when nobody else could see it.